I'm Martin Houston. That's James Hardy behind the glass. And today is the second edition of Live the Dream contest, co-host contest. And sitting in studio with me today is Mr. Virgil Williams. Good morning, Mr. Williams. How you doing, sir?
Good morning, Martin.
All right. Hey, we're going to get into a little conversation, check on a little bio. How did you become an Alabama fan? And then, of course, anyone that's followed on Facebook know that you and several of the guys are a regular part of the conversation there. We're going to talk about quarterbacks, going to talk about Jalen Hurts, going to talk about some of the statistics of some of the guys who we would consider the greatest. We really kind of hijacked the best of the Saban era conversation when it comes to A.J. McCarron, because everyone, not one person, sent in and picked anybody as the number one quarterback other than A.J. So I really see no reason to have that conversation. The conversation we're going to have is we're going to flip it and say, is A.J. the best ever at Alabama? So be thinking about that. Is A.J. McCarron the best ever at Alabama? We've already got a poll question up at the Blitz 1029, at Tide 1029 FM, as well as at Martin Houston 35. You can go out and give us your thoughts there. Is A.J. the best ever, or is there another Alabama quarterback that you would vote as the best ever? A couple of things around the capstone and around the sporting world. NBA Finals tonight. Will LeBron James be swept? Are they getting out the brooms in Cleveland? I don't think they will, because I think the NBA wants one more game of finances. So I think they'll let them get back to Golden State so that they can celebrate in Golden State. It's a lot more money to be made if they ended in Golden State. And it's just the second year in a row that's happened. Last year they were down 3-0. Looked like they had no chance.
Do we need Tim Donaghy in here for this discussion? Because this sounds like a good conspiracy theory that we could develop.
Well, and then the conspiracy theory is this LeBron? If he swept, LeBron would have started his NBA final run being swept by San Antonio in potentially, because there's no guarantee you get back. Could he book in his NBA career, and if it does, would that impact his legacy? That's big news. U.S. Open and golf is starting. The only reason I bring that up is, man, if you're a golf fan, you got to want to see the pairing Tiger Woods, Dustin Johnson, and Justin Thomas, the number one golfer in the world. The former number one, other two guys have at one point been number one golfers in the world. So if you're a golf nut, that would be like seeing Coach Saban and whoever. I don't know. Well, really, that's not fair because nobody else is in Coach Saban's category. But anyway, just kidding for all the other fans. All right, couple other quick things around. We're going to talk about grad transfer and more, but let's get right into our conversation. We do it each and every day, reminding you that this is a day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, serve someone, love someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. All right, Virgil, welcome in once again. Glad that you got up and at 'em with us this morning. I know you're not a lazy person, but 5 o'clock comes early, doesn't it?
It's a little earlier for me. Yeah. Unless I'm fishing, I'm not up this early.
Well, I tell people it's not just about being up. You actually have to be up and energetic. That was the biggest transfer for me, or change for me, not just to getting up. I'm not a morning person. But coming in ready to talk to people for an hour, it started off, I tell people God has a sense of humor. Started off, I had a 3-hour show from 6 to 9 on Moody Radio South. Mm-hmm. Then I had a 2-hour show from 6 to 8, the Houston and Huber show, and now it's just 6 to 7. So at least God is lessening my burden in the morning, but it's great. You get on here and an hour flies by, so buckle up. That's why we call it the hardest hitting hour of Alabama sports talk on the radio. But just to take a little bit of time before we get in, kind of tell us a little bit about who Virgil Williams is, what's his passion, what he loves.
Well, I mean, I was born and raised right here in Tuscaloosa, so as far as being an Alabama fan, I really didn't have a whole lot of choice.
Oh, so you don't have a story of you just have
I've always been. Earliest recollection of watching Alabama on TV was the goal line stand 79. I would have been 12 at the time. I remember that at my grandmother's house. Of course, you got to think back then we didn't have a lot of games on TV. So, the championship games were the few that we got to watch. And then I worked out at the stadium selling drinks. I've actually played football on Bryant-Denny Stadium. Now, that was before the addition. Now, I've got a picture of our all-star team sitting on the 50-yard line, and the background, you can see the top of the stadium. So I've seen the stadium grow from a little bitty bowl to what it is now.
We have a lot of listeners that aren't from Tuscaloosa and from different places, and even some of them now are younger than when it happened. My son got to play at Bryant-Denny, got all-star, scored a touchdown at Bryant-Denny. So it's pretty cool. I don't know if they still do that with the young kids. I know they were still doing it a few years ago. But the high schools here, when it was county and central and all that, that was a neat thing for them to take those high schools. And sometimes you kind of wish they would go back to that. I don't know, what happened to that. But that would be when I was growing up in Gaston, they used to have what was called the Charity Bowl. And they would take 4 schools and play them. Wouldn't it be awesome if they did like a weekend thing where they had like Central and Bryan and County High and Northridge and those teams played off in Bryant-Denny? I think it would help local football as well. But anyway, that has to be a neat memory. Other than that personal memory of being there, what's your favorite memory from Bryant-Denny? Of course, if your first memory was the goal line stand, that's you kind of set the bar high.
First memory, goal line stance. I mean, that's an iconic play and everything. It's amazing how big the stadium's gotten and everything else. But I remember going to a game, and we were playing Louisiana Lafayette, and I was 12 rows up. Me and my brother-in-law were there, and they were hitting so hard, you felt it in the 12th row. I mean, it was amazing because we were closer to the to the field back then. They've moved the stands back and everything else, but you just about felt the sweat come off of you when they hit. And I was like, and them Louisiana boys, they was tough. I can't remember what year that was, but it would have been over in the early 90s, I guess. And then, of course, 92 when y'all brought the championship back. That was a great memory. And now we're spoiled.
Yeah,
we're spoiled.
Speaking of, no doubt we're definitely spoiled as Alabama fans. And I'm okay with us being spoiled right now. It makes my job a lot easier. I was telling Ron Fowler, who does the game from 2 to 6, I don't know how he did this when it was Shula and those guys, man. That had to be some rough sledding on. I mean, what do you do the week after you lose to Mississippi State? 3 for the third year, whatever. But anyway, once again, you're in with the Blitz on top 102.9, 100.9. I'm Mark Houston. This is Virgil Williams. He's the Live the Dream co-host contest. We also gonna have a couple other guys coming up here in the following week, so we'll be introducing that. We still have an opportunity for one more person to win. Now, this is kind of a sidebar note before we get into the Alabama conversation, because we're going to talk about the quarterback situation. Anyone that knows that you're a fan of Alabama, but you are a fan of Jalen Hurts. So we're going to talk to you about that conversation as well as the quarterbacks in general. But I want to get your opinion on this. Is a guy, I don't know how you feel about him. He's a turd. But he's from Alabama, not played at Alabama. Terrell Owens, snubbed by the Hall of Fame, in his opinion, for 2 years in a row. This year he gets in. He announced yesterday that he is not going to go to the White House and have for his induction ceremony. What are your initial thoughts when you hear a guy's going to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame and he's not going to go? Does that speak to anything that you think of society today?
Yeah, it does. I kind of see, I guess, his point, because, he wants to celebrate in his way, and I think he's wanting to make a statement because he was snubbed. So
think about this. He got snubbed. Hold on. You were up for the Hall of Fame, and you're in the Hall of Fame only after the third time. There are guys that were better than him and great players that's not ever even their names never even get mentioned, much less getting snubbed.
T.O. always had that kind of attitude when he played, so it doesn't really surprise me that he did it.
And that's the point. I think he will be the first one ever.
Wow.
Now he didn't have any announcement about where he was going to do it or anything, but to me, that's you're right. He can do it whichever way he wants, but to me, that Tim Redding just posted he has something up his sleeve. Or in his sock, and for those of you who don't know what that reference is, T.O. was the one that had the Sharpie in his sock and all of that. So he probably has something up his sleeve or in his sock. But anyway, that's just I don't know what he's gonna pull, but he's gonna make a scene for his induction. But congratulations to all of those guys. It's a pretty cool class going in, an amazing class. Of players, and one that his on the field stuff was definitely worthy of it. Ray Lewis, but some of his off the field stuff. It's amazing how some people get dinged for their off the field actions and character, and some don't. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. Is A.J. Mccarron the best quarterback in the Nick Saban era? And of course, how do we determine best quarterback? It used to be that best quarterbacks was more than just numbers and more than just legacy or legend. Now it seems to be about the legend. It seems to be about the legacy. And way too often, I think people even give credit, Virgil, for what happens post-Alabama.
Yes.
We got Pat calling in. Pat normally calling in on recruiting, but Pat's calling in to talk about. But I guarantee there's gonna be a recruiting question in there. I'm not voting for the lottery. I'm not a betting man, Virgil, but I'm willing to bet Pat gonna throw in at the end a recruiting question. But let's get to Pat. Pat, welcome into the Blitz. What's on your mind?
All right, fellas. I want to talk about these quarterbacks. I disagree with you. I disagree with your co-host. I want to touch a little bit on quarterbacks all the way around. But
you can't just say what you disagree with.
I disagree that, I followed a guy named Andrew Zhao back when he was in high school. He never lost in the state of Florida. Had he not gotten hurt before his senior campaign, Andrew would have broken every record in the state of Florida. And then he comes to Alabama. He has a cannon for an arm. Then he has to compete with that other fella. Well, anyway.
Well,
go ahead.
Hey, Pat. Now you finna stir up a hornet's nest with me. I get really upset when I think about the Andrew Zhao, Tyler Watts there. There shouldn't have been a competition. Andrew Zhao should have been the quarterback.
There shouldn't have been a competition.
Andrew Zhao should have been.
Zhao was the best it was.
Yeah, because he had most of the passing records when he left here, and he split time. So go ahead, though. Go ahead and make your point.
My point exactly. But anyway, Andrew does not get his due. When Andrew came back, I watched him in a quarterback competition. I think even that one that he was battling with at that time, Andrew tore their butt up. He was throwing ropes at 50 yards. It looked like a laser.
So are you saying Andrew Zhau's the best ever?
Golf cart, huh?
Are you saying Andrew Zhau's the best ever?
I think Andrew Zhao had potential to be the best ever. That's what I'm saying. He was not given his due. All right, well, anyway, let's get off Andrew Zhao a minute, and let's talk about, the run in the mud. Let's talk about the 66 team that went undefeated that did not get a national title. You cannot count the stuff about what's happening now in the future. I mean, or now in the recent past. You go back to Bart Starr. How many Super Bowls does he have? How many? Hey, and hey, does A.J. Mccarron have one Super Bowl? Not one. Hey, I think Joe Namath got one and told you he was going to get it. And but look, hey, let's go back to the present. Hey, I think that the play last year that won the national title, where he looked the receiver off and bam, it was a touchdown. He could very well be the quarterback that's going to show you that there's the best is we're yet to see him.
Well,
so these quarterbacks go, it's not. You can't measure it. Just like what you were saying, you can't measure about what they could do. Hey, Stedman Shealy was an absolutely fantastic quarterback. And then my boy from out in Texas, hey, when he throws to number 5 in the end zone, hey, and you remember recently, hey, they classified him as a game manager. Hey, but there's a time that Alabama only needs a game manager. And, hey,
like the entire Saban era? Yeah.
Yes, the entire Saban era. I always classified A.J. Mccarron as a game manager.
A.J. Mccarron.
Him was a total difference maker.
A.J. Mccarron, if he had played in Lane Kiffin's offense, would have absolutely rewrote the record books. If you had asked A.J. McCarron to do what they asked Blake Sims to do, he would have absolutely rewrote the record books. I have no doubt about A.J. McCarron's ability. He was a game manager because that's what Saban looked for. Saban, at that time, it took a balanced offensive and run attack, and because he had such a great defense and you didn't have to score 50 points to win a game. But that's my thoughts. What about you, Virgil? Hold on 1 second, Pat.
Go ahead.
Well, if you go back to AJ, there was a couple of times there that he had the highest completion percentage and accuracy. I mean, AJ was a great quarterback. There's nobody disputing that. I never called him I never understood the game manager title of anything.
Well, the greatest.
What do you want a quarterback to be?
The greatest quarterback in the world is a game manager in Tom Brady. And he manages to win every game just about. I mean, when you take it down, but you go back and look, when AJ had to make a play, did he make the plays?
Yes.
That lets you know. A game manager is a guy who wins when you don't need something.
Right. And the quarterback is they're the manager of the offense. That's their job.
Right.
So to give somebody they're just a game manager, that's the biggest understatement I've ever heard in my life.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, one more question.
Go ahead, Pat.
Because I disagree with your co-host, and I want to talk about that with Jalen Hurts, that your co-host is a big Jalen Hurts fan. I disagree in that he is not able to read his progressions, and until he can show me that he can see past the second progression, then I want Tua to be my quarterback, because with the weapons that Alabama has, especially the new weapon that your co-host is not talking about, we have a 6'6" wide receiver that runs a 4.40, and until you can show me that you can get the ball to all your different targets, including your tight ends, hey, I'm not for you.
I think Jalen had two struggles. First of all, I don't think Jalen was developed and did develop even on his own into as much of a progression passer as he needed to be. No question there. But I also think, and I know this is going to sound crazy, I think the fact that he had a great wide receiver, I think he was looking for Calvin Ridley because of Calvin's volatile personality, which magnified Jalen's weakness. Everybody talks about he didn't get the ball to Calvin. I'm going, Calvin had 66 receptions to everybody else's 14 or 15 as far as wide receivers. So I agree with you in terms of he has to grow in his progression reads, but I also think that was magnified by his relationship with Calvin and wanting to appease Calvin. Virgil, and thanks, Pat. We'll let you go.
I understand that, but one more thing I know, and then we'll go, is that we have an arsenal of wide receivers now. You've got to be able to spread the ball around, and Tua can see the entire field.
No, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that.
All of it. Have a blessed day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right. I don't think anybody's going to argue with Tua's ability to read the field. But a lot of people, we're getting some comments on Facebook that we're going to get to about the best quarterbacks. The guy's name that's popping up a lot is Brody Crowell, but let's take a second, back up, Virgil, to the Jalen conversation. I think people misunderstand. I know they misunderstand why I was a Jalen supporter throughout the last year. I never once said that Jalen was a better quarterback than Tua. I always said Jalen was here. Jalen was a starter. He did nothing to lose his job as the starter.
Yes.
And until he did something to lose his job, you don't bench a guy because the guy behind him can beat somebody by 50 points versus 30. Alabama was just beating people in the Mississippi State game. It looked like, hey, he may not, and then he got it done. Well, to me, I thought he would start splitting time at the LSU game. Didn't happen. Then after the Auburn game, I was shocked that they didn't put Tua in the Auburn game. I'm at home going, come on, let's do something. Yeah. Well, the time it finally came down to it, Nick Saban made the change, and Tua showed, okay, now this is my opportunity. And that's what you do as a teammate, as a player, as a starter, as a backup. You're ready for your opportunity. And that's the point I was always trying to make with the Tua Jalen conversation.
Well, everybody, just because I support Jalen does not mean that I don't think Tua is a great quarterback. I think Tua is a great quarterback. Everybody talks about quarterback being a passer. It's more than being a passer. It's being what everybody says, a game manager. You got to do both. You've got to manage the game. Jalen has the it factor when it comes to, okay, I'm not getting it done with my arm, so let's make something happen. He makes it happen with his legs. How do we judge who's the greatest quarterback? By the number of passing yards? To me, that's a bogus thing there, because the number of completions outweighs the number of yards, because the yards, how many yards after catch are added to the quarterbacks? So, because it's not where they catch it in the air. It's where they get tackled at, and that's the end of the reception. So, there's a lot of things. I love Tua. I think he's a great quarterback. My point is, why do we have to hate one to love the other?
And
that's my whole point right there. Don't hate Jalen because he's not the passer that you think he should be. He has got the job done for 2 years. He has led the team, not by himself. It is a team sport. He's led the team to a 26-2 record in 2 years. How many other quarterbacks has done that in Alabama? I mean, let's just be honest.
And what tickles me is a lot of times people come back and say, well, any quarterback could have did it. Okay, so does it matter then?
Right.
Are we going to give Tua credit if we beat teams?
We already have.
No, I'm saying
we gave Tua credit for beating Georgia.
That's true.
The defense. Wait a minute.
Everybody played better when Tua came in.
Jalen lost against Clemson because the defense was on the field too much. Tua wins against Georgia, but was not the defense out there in the second half having to stop the people, having to make the interceptions, having to make the stops on 3rd down and 4th down, having to stop them in the overtime? I mean, Tua didn't play both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
There's 11 people on each side of the ball. It's a team sport. I love them both. I think we're in a gold mine situation. And this year I think we're even better because Mac Jones showed us that I think he's a capable backup.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And he could actually be a starter. We don't know because he'll probably never see the field.
Yeah, well, I think everybody's talking about Jalen transferring. I would not be surprised if Mac Jones go, hold on, I'm behind Tua and Jalen, and behind me is Talia and Tyson. I'm out of here. So I would not be surprised if Mac Jones makes his way out. Got a lot of conversation going on off air in between the breaks, and we were talking about Tua and the first two plays. I see Robert Saucier saying, sorry, Virgil, but the play of the other guys changed considerably when Tua came in. That is true after the second series. The first two series, everybody forgets until Tua makes to me, the play he made on the run was more impressive to me regarding Tua than the passing.
Yeah.
I've seen Tua throw beautiful passes, but that run he made to get that first down showed me toughness, grit, and drive. And I believe it wasn't just putting Tua in. When you put a backup quarterback in, you're putting a backup quarterback in to create a spark. That's the one position, like, you can sub running backs and linemen and DBs and all that stuff, and there is no view change. When you change a quarterback, you're changing the quarterback to incite like momentum and inspiration and ignite the other team, the other players. Well, the first two series, the offense didn't look any different. No. The first two series before that third down run, we were one great. I'm talking about great run from being two more 3-and-outs to start that. And to me, that was as impressive a play from a freshman who had not played a lot of meaningful minutes as the pass was. Now, the pass is going to get what's going to always be glorified. But from that point on, the Alabama offensive line, and don't forget what happened when Jonah Williams went out. Everybody forgets that too.
That was the difference maker to me.
Leatherwood came in and dominated on the corner. So it was a lot of things that go in there that led to that. But, we can look at a lot of different things. You can look at different plays and different eras and things like that to try to make a comparison. But it's difficult. But that's what we're trying to do this morning is A.J. Mccarron. He's obviously the getting the votes for the best in the Saban era. But is he the best ever in Alabama history? And Robert Saucier went all the way back. I'm not even sure I can look up this guy's stats. I'm going to try this. He went all the way back in terms of his guy, Harry Gilmer. So I don't know that Harry Gilmer, his stats are not going to compare. Back in the day, he played in 45 and 46. Of course, his stats aren't going to be the same in terms of the yards, but he had 88 attempts, 57 completions, 905 yards. The next year, he had 160 for 69. Now, look at this. His completion percentage was 43%, but the legacy and the legend is bigger than the results, right? Well, that's kind of to our point. So
that's the whole point. And then you go back to those times. Yes, it was a different era. They didn't throw the ball supposedly as much. I'm looking at some of these numbers on the stat sheets, and they threw the ball quite often back then. But the yards, the completion percentage, everybody talks about how bad the completion percentage is. AJ has the highest completion percentage of the ones that I pulled up. He's a 66 point something percentage, completion percentage. Jalen Hurts has a 61. Tua's got a 63% in his limited time. But
now
66.9 is AJ McCarron. But my thing is, okay, everybody wants the gunslingers and everything else, and that's fine. That's great. You see a lot of exciting football. You're going to get a lot of turnovers. How many interceptions to completions do some of these guys have? That's a telling story on some of these quarterbacks. A.J. McCarron threw 45 completions for every interception that he had.
Wow.
That's pretty strong. That's game management, ain't it?
Yes. So for every 45 passes, AJ threw an interception.
Every 45 completions. Every 45 completions,
he threw one
interception.
Oh wow, I was thinking attempts the whole time.
No completions.
Wow. That is that.
Now that's his average for the 4 years that he played. He had 15 interceptions and he had 686 completions. And you divide it out, it's 45 completions for every interception.
Wow. And I guess the next closest guy would probably be Jalen.
Jalen is, I think,
because
30,
of the one. 39, I think you said.
I think it was 39 for Jalen, and Tua's 24 for one. And I'm gonna say this, and everybody's gonna jump on me for saying it. Tua is 29 or 24 for one, but he played against. Let's just be honest. For the majority of his playing time, he was playing against backup players. Correct.
Correct.
He was not playing against the number one defense. I'm not saying he wouldn't do it. I'm just saying what we've got, the body of work we've got, he did it against the number two players.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a great player. There's no doubt he is a great quarterback. I've never said that he wasn't going to be. I get attacked for supporting one. It goes back to my point. You don't have to hate Jalen to love Tua. You don't have to hate Tua to love Jalen. You can love them both.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with you. And Tua is a guy that I think is going to have, you're going to have, he will be a guy that's going to bring you great delight. But he's going to, when it's a close game, there may be a time where he's going to make your heart drop with trying to get it in there. But I think he also has the pedigree to bring you back from it as well. So Tim Redding said they won't gunslingers until they get picked, then they get their feelings hurt. so that's kind of the thought process. And AJ to me was a gunslinger that Saban had to maintain. If you go back, if you know some insight, go ahead, Jeff.
You know how Saban maintained that with AJ?
What's that?
The spanking.
Yeah. And everybody forgets you because you remember when AJ came in as a backup and they were supposed to run the clock out, and AJ goes for the touchdown. And Saban, of course, spanks him. But there was a time in AJ's career when they went down to Florida, and AJ played okay early, and then he really began to come into his own. And rumor has it, and it's not a rumor, but I always like rumor has it that Saban realized in that game, he says, man, I have to take the reins off of this kid. In other words, Saban had a different offensive philosophy under A.J. Mccarron than he does under today's quarterbacks. And I think had A.J. played in that time, under this time, it'd have been different. But Kevin Smith brings up a good point. The reason I wouldn't take this guy over AJ, I think he may have been a more pure quarterback than AJ, but I wouldn't take him over it because quarterback isn't just about playing the game and the stats. It's about playing every game, being available to your team. Brody Crowell was an injury waiting to happen, even though he may have been the most talented quarterback in, because we're talking about not just Saban era, but in our lifetime, Brody Crowell may have the tools to have been the best of all of them.
Yeah, and that brings up another point that some of the names we've seen pop up and that Pat talked about. You got Namath, you got Stabler. Namath was benched. Stabler was benched. Stabler was kicked off the team, completely off the team for part of the year, one of his years. So what kind of teammate are you? That to me, you're the leader of your team. The quarterback is the leader of the team. I'll take Tua and Jalen over anybody. These kids with the heads that they've got on and the way that they have handled this whole situation, the two of them. I don't talk about parents. Throw the parents out. What the parents are saying has nothing to do with what these kids are doing. Jalen has never said he wanted to transfer. Tua mentioned transfer, but everybody took it out of context.
Yeah.
So you can't even – take those – I'll take those two over anybody with the heads that they've got on their shoulders and take this team right here.
I'm not sure. I might quarterback this team to
I could probably
10 wins.
I could coach it.
I could probably quarterback it to 10 wins. I just hand it off and just throw it up. I just can't. But no, seriously, one of the things that I do want to point out, sometimes we look at greatness based off of what happens post Alabama.
That was brought up by Pat. He kept saying Pro Bowl. What are we talking? We're not talking about pro quarterbacks. We're talking about college quarterbacks.
Robert Sauce here bring it up. Listen to the quarterbacks that we. It's really. I know it's going to be what your likes are when it comes to the best quarterback of all time in Alabama. But Virgil, when you look at one of the guys that always gets mentioned is Joe Namath. Joe Namath had 24 touchdowns and 20 interceptions.
It was 26 and 24, something like that. It was almost, he had almost as many interceptions as he had touchdowns.
But the legend is greater than what actually happened.
Exactly.
So don't get me wrong. Now, he was probably one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play here. And if he was playing in today's culture and decided with the gun he had and stuff, he probably would rewrite Alabama's record books. But we can't judge one time. We judge off of stats. Then the next time we judge off of impact. And then the next time it's all of those things. It's leadership. Is being there. And one of the things, and I'm going to leave it with this. We're going to go to break because I'm going to leave what they call like the hanging Chad. One of the things we don't know about Tua is he reliable?
What happens when he gets that smack in the mouth like Ole Miss?
Well, we don't know. That's what I'm saying. That is why Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones, we need both of those guys. And now Lane Hatcher coming from Arkansas, Pulaski Academy, while all those guys, because we don't know Tua's durability. If he's durable, man, the kid's going to be special.
No doubt.
But could this hand thing be something that nags? Could it be something else? Could he get hit in the mouth? Because Blake Barnett was great until he got hit in the mouth at USC. All right, coming back on the other side, we're going to put the finishing touches on this edition of the Blitz with our Live the Dream co-host, Virgil Williams, right here on your home for Alabama Sports Talk 102.9 and 100.9. Let's go through some honorable mention guys, and then I'm going to get your final thoughts. Guys who have gotten votes and mentions, and some guys have really gotten a lot of love. Andrew Zal has gotten more love this morning on Facebook than I expected. A lot of people really like him. C.J. Watson actually saying that he was his favorite player. And any of these you want to comment on, just stop me. There was Bart Starr brought up. There was Harry Gilmer brought up. Joe Namath in his era brought up. There was several people saying, hey, if Brody played, we're talking about Brody playing in the Kiffin offense, would he have done more? Would he have been a better player? Would he have been able to make a difference? And I thought it was interesting that who was it that asked the question? I think it may have been Tim Redding. I can't remember. Would Brody? Tim Redding asked, would Brody have been as injury prone if he had been under Scott Cochran? I think so, because he got to the NFL and he still had some issues with injury as well.
We've had injuries happen here with Scott Cochran. I mean, look at last year. Look at our linebackers, the way they went down. Our defensive players, I mean, they kept going down. I got to give a special mention. My wife's favorite quarterback of all times was Jay Barker. Jay Barker was a good quarterback. He was a good leader.
She brought out his percentage.
Oh, wait a minute. He had a 61.5% percentage, but he only threw 8 completions in the championship game. Wasn't that it?
Huh?
In the championship game, how many completions did he have? 8.
I don't think it was that many, was it?
or was he 3? Was he 3 of 8? Or maybe it was 3 of 8.
I think he had 18 yards or 19 yards, something like that.
But did he lead the team? Did he do what he needed to not win, not lose?
Right.
And won. So, yes, he is a great quarterback. In my opinion, he's a great quarterback.
Coach Stallings was on with the game with Ryan Fowler, and he talked about, he said, I gave him the ball and said, hey, son, you don't have to win it all. You just have to make sure you don't give it to them and that you take care of the ball, because we have a great defense. We just don't want to give anything away. But if you saw, by the end of his career, he was a different passer.
Yes.
And he was able to develop. And I don't know that Jalen can develop as much as Jay did. But to me, one of the huge disadvantages that Jalen doesn't have that all the other guys had is that he didn't have anybody to teach him. He didn't have anybody to watch. We talked about that offline. But one other question, and it was brought up, do you think any of the other guys, Jake Coker, Blake Sims, Greg McElroy, John Parker Wilson. Do you think any of those guys, had they had 3 years like AJ, do you think any of those guys would have been able to accomplish and do what AJ did?
You know, it's tough to say. You have different coordinators leading them. I'll say this. Any quarterback that came to Alabama, if they would have came in the Kiffin era, would have been lights out because he built his offense around the quarterback's strengths. That's the reason why we have had the stats with the Jake Cokers and the Blake Sims and with Jalen in his first year because he built it around them. So it's hard to say because you don't just bring the quarterback in, you've got to change your coordinators as well. And that makes a big difference too. But I think any of the guys that we've mentioned here, you put them with the talent we've got out there now, yes, they would be unbelievable.
Yes or no, is AJ the best in Saban era?
I think he's the best in Saban era.
Is he the best all time?
Well, there's a lot of quarterbacks that I don't know about in all time, so I'm gonna say yes just because I know his stats and I know what he did. Everybody is going to say because of the championships. Well, isn't that what it's about?
That's what that's what it seems to be because of the championships. But it's really based on which guy you like.
There you go.